This is easily the best pistol that I have reviewed in 2026 or potentially ever. Oh my God, that's flat. I've got to tell someone about this. You guys have seen the opening montage. It's been a long time coming, and I'm super excited for today's video because in hand I have the Bul Armory Tac Comp. Now, the Tac Comp was first announced at GunCon of 2024 and on display at SHOT Show of 2025. But since then, we've heard crickets. So nothing has really been said about this since SHOT Show 2025. And I've got to say, I'm not sure I've ever seen such a high customer demand for a new model to come out from a manufacturer. And I thought I wanted to do a full review of this pistol specifically because one, it's new and I think it's pretty awesome, but I realized I also hadn't done a full review on a Bul Armory pistol before. About maybe a year ago, I did a sort of on the range first impressions video with the Bul Armory 5-inch Tac Pro, and I absolutely loved shooting that thing. It shot awesome. So I came into this review with some very high expectations, and I've got to say, this did not disappoint. This thing is a recoil taming monster. And with all of the new improvements of the SAS II and the 2026 models, I thought this would be the perfect pistol to do a full review on. So buckle up, let's dive in. So what is the Tac Comp? Now, this is Bul Armory's newest release for 2026, and the thing that makes it so different from the entire rest of their lineup is, although this is V-ported, which this is 6 V-ports as opposed to their Pro models that are 8, it also has a single piece built-in compensator into the barrel. So the entire barrel and compensator are one piece of steel. Okay, so let's go through all of the features on this pistol and what makes it such an improvement over some of the older generation models of Bul Armory. And the first we're going to talk about is the optic system. Now, this is Bul Armory's proprietary sort of optic cut, and there's a couple of really, really cool things about this. So first off, it's really, really low. Very often, I think there's a lot of optic play systems that, although are robust and really, really good options in terms of holding zero and just being very solid, they tend to sit a little high for me, and so then the optic sits kind of high as well, and that just adds to the overall concealability or just size package of the pistol. And they actually have a little bit of a different type of sort of mounting system that I wanted to talk about. So you can sort of see there's this little almost raised, best way I can describe it is square or pillar, and that interfaces with the optic plates. Now, we'll go over this in the sort of just bag review or kind of showing what comes with a pistol later, but it basically interfaces right there, and the optic actually directly mounts into the slide itself. So the optic plate's just there to basically be a sort of sealing plate or just adapter plate for some of the different optics, but it basically allows you to still have a directly mounted optic to the pistol. And because of this little sort of pillar or square interface, this optic system or this optic is not loosening up. It's not going anywhere as long as you torque all of your screws down to spec, and most likely I would recommend Loctiting them. So the B.A.O system is a fantastic sort of update, and I think it's probably arguably one of the best sort of universal mounting systems that exist in the 2011 or double stack 1911 space. Okay, so moving on, let's go ahead and talk about some of the just controls and overall build of this gun. So obviously, as we've talked about, and probably the most noteworthy part of this gun is going to be the compensator with the V6 porting. Now, this is an all stainless steel gun, and you've got a couple of really cool things. So the slide stop, the sort of extended magazine release lever here, as well as the thumb safety and grip safety are all machined now. So there are no mold injected parts in this. So that's definitely going to be something that is a factor in how long this will run and how well it will run for that length of time. And something that I definitely didn't think that I would like as much, or I thought would bother me, was going to be this raised sort of shielded safety. Now you see this on a lot of competition pistols, and I really expected, just because I like to ride guns really high, that was going to kind of get in my way. And at least me personally as a shooter, I don't really have any issues with my dominant thumb riding the slide or anything. But I was actually super surprised at how well this sort of fit and still let me feel like I was in a ton of control of this pistol. Although with the way it shoots, you don't really have to do a whole lot. It does so much of the work for you. And you'll notice they've done a really fantastic job of sort of dehorning some of these pieces. And obviously this is just my personal preference. I prefer a single-sided safety. I am right-handed, so that does lend itself a little bit to me having options, since the 1911 and double stack 1911 were sort of built as right-handed guns initially. And so I personally would probably prefer to see even a shielded safety I'm okay with, but maybe just a single-sided option as well. But of course, that's something that you can totally change out after the fact. I do like as well on this slide stop, it's actually sort of undercut and relieved. A lot of times, since the frame itself isn't really cut or relieved, a lot of these slide stops will be very difficult to both get under to lock the slide back and or push down to release the slide when you have a new magazine in the gun. So that is a awesome little just feature add and quality of life improvement that you do see on a lot of higher end pistols. Next is going to be this competition mag release. And I've got to say, at least at first, I thought this was going to be something I had to tell people that they should probably take off of the gun if they were going to carry this. But I did a ton of drawing from concealment and reloading and walking around with it in my holster, and never once did it accidentally get bumped. And it's sort of sprung hard enough, but in a really good range that I find, completely usable, so that it's not really inadvertently getting pressed easily and dropping a mag. So I thought that was a really cool option. But if for some reason you did want to take it out, it's a super easy set screw option as well. So that is, a nice feature. So one of the things that I really like about Bul Armory pistols is that they come with, in the box, a carry mag well, and it comes with the extended pin so that you don't have to resource that or go out and buy one. And in terms of the polymer, one of my biggest complaints with just the double stack 1911 and 2011s in general, for the most part, is that most of them don't really come with an aggressive enough texture. Even if they look aggressive or they're trying to be aggressive, I always find myself wanting for more grip. And, realistically, I know people can make all sorts of, critiques of have a better grip or, get your hands stronger. But in reality, when I'm shooting a handgun, I want to have my hands locked in as much as possible, especially if I'm taking a class or, it's super hot outside when I'm shooting and my hands get sweaty, just so any added benefit to keep the gun locked into my hand, ultimately with a little less effort for me, is always wanted. Okay guys, so we'll do a quick little accuracy test with the new Bul Tac Comp at about 10 yards. That thing rocks. All four of them in the same hole, except for one. I'll take it. Okay, so next I want to talk about one of the more innovative features of the updated Bul Armory pistols, and that is going to be on the link trigger system. So the link trigger system is really unique, and I think, like I said, incredibly innovative for this platform, and one of the bigger sort of changes or quality of life improvements that have been done on these pistols. So we have a couple of different trigger options that Bul Armory offers to be able to swap out. And these are going to cover a vast majority of shooters in terms of being able to sort of set the trigger up, the length of pull, the sort of shape of it to your preference. And so what they basically have are 3 different styles. They've got curved, they've got flat, and then they have this precision trigger. Now, both the curved and flat triggers will come in short, medium, and long. And then they've got this very interesting precision trigger that just has a little sort of island pad for your finger if you're doing any sort of bullseye shooting, or even in competitions you just want that type of trigger. And so if you'll notice, 2 of these triggers are actually the same, and that's because I swapped out for one of the long flat trigger shoes in this review pistol. Now, this link trigger system is incredibly intuitive. I was able to swap this out within 30 to 45 seconds of deciding I wanted to. It's not something, honestly, the vast majority of people would even need to read directions for. It's that straightforward. It's that easy to understand by them. And like I said, the fact that you can do all this without having to actually remove or take the entire gun apart, as well as not having to refit a trigger or have totally separate triggers, I think this is one of the most innovative things to come out of the double stack 1911 or 2011 space in many, many years. So let's talk about the packaging that comes with the Bul Armory Tac Comp, as well as their entire new line of pistols. I've got to say, easily, the Tac Comp and all of the new line are the most feature-packed packages that I've ever seen in the 2011 or double stack 1911 space. So you have this incredible range bag, which is nice because a lot of pistols will come with sort of weird shaped boxes that you're not really going to travel with, or they're going to come in sort of larger Pelican style boxes you're not going to want to take to the range as sort of a range gun travel style thing for a single pistol. So it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So the fact that this is usable for a range bag is pretty awesome. And so when you open this up, all of this is in a separate sort of little baggie. I just took all of it out to make showing you guys a lot easier. But you have a lock, some cleaning accessories, 2 recoil springs in addition to the one that's in the gun, which is nice just because if I want to run different types of ammo or want to really tune how this pistol recoils, I have that option because these are both different weights. Have a patch as well as 2 really cool like Retros 80s stickers. A magwell, like I said, this comes with the entire Bul lineup just to be able to add that if you would want. A Allen key for takedown. This comes with 3 of the most common pistol optic footprints. Is just incredible because almost, regardless of what you have, there's a good chance that it fits one of these footprints and you can immediately throw an optic on this and go to town. So that is all the things that come in the packaging, but the other really, really cool feature is it actually comes with 4 of these magazines. And one of the nice things about the fact that it comes with 4 of these is these are just a tiny bit, like maybe a couple millimeters longer than your standard 126 millimeter 2011 magazine. And those typically hold 17 for the most part. That's pretty standard. These are actually going to hold 20 plus 1. So you got more rounds and you get 4 magazines. So if you're shooting competitions or you just want extra magazines so you're not loading all the time or you want to practice reload drills, you're good to go. And it's actually coming with a usable amount of magazines and you don't have to go out and get more of those. So that is the Bul Armory packaging. And as I said, this is easily the most feature-packed sort of presentation that I've seen, if not in a long time, ever in the firearm space. Okay, and now for the really fun part of this review, and that is going to be on the shooting performance. I am not sure that I have shot a pistol in a very, very long time that impressed me as much as this one. I remember just going out to zero this thing, and I could tell that, it shot pretty flat, but it was also a tack driver. Like I was putting rounds literally on top of each other from like 10 yards as I was trying to confirm zero on this. And once I actually started shooting it and was shooting it at speed, this thing has almost no recoil. I'd almost go to say that some of the slow-mo videos that I captured, the gun is almost not rising at all, if at all. With this sort of slightly more aggressive grip, it stays in my hand, it's easy to control, and the gun just tracks really, really well. It was a really smooth recoil impulse in that when I was shooting this, it stayed so stable overall, like it wasn't jumpy or snappy, that I kept the dot in the optic window the entire time I was shooting, which made shooting accurate and fast an honest breeze. Now, I know a lot of times people will talk about, pistols not really making the shooter better. They're just hiding things. And there's the saying, it's the Indian, not the arrow. But I've got to say, this is a pretty awesome arrow. And it definitely, I don't know if I would say it made my shooting performance better, but it made the input and sort of, focus on certain little aspects not have to be nearly as front of mind for me to shoot this as well as I shoot some other pistols. transitions were incredibly easy for me because I never lost the dot in the window. It was super, super fast when I switched from target to target to know exactly where the rounds were going to go and to be confident that that was the case. So I was able to transition with this much faster than a lot of pistols that I would shoot. And honestly, it was just super fun. The first couple of rounds out of this made me laugh just because it's such a pleasure to shoot and it's such a unique, at least to me, feel compared to a lot of other pistols that I've shot, even sort of comped and ported pistols. And I would say, honestly, it's something you almost need to feel to truly understand. But I can say this thing shot lights out. One of the other really cool things that I like is out of the box, this thing feels like it's sprung incredibly well. You'll notice when I'm shooting this, it doesn't really have much dip, if any at all. And I know a lot of times, typically, a lot of these sort of comped and or ported guns will have incredibly light recoil springs. And this one does come with those extra ones in the packaging if you wanted to change them or kind of experience how each one differs. But this one definitely is sprung a little bit tighter than, you know, like an XC or some of the others that I've shot like this. And that definitely lends to reliability. I know some of these pistols can be a little finicky in terms of if the slide gets a little slow or sluggish, they're not going to want to eject rounds or even feed rounds. But the fact that this is sprung a little bit tighter definitely makes ejecting rounds and the pistol chambering another round not really a big issue for me. And through the 500 rounds, I know that's not a ton in terms of getting the gun ultra dirty, but it never felt sluggish. It never really changed the way it was shooting. And all of the features on this just made this a fun gun to shoot. One other thing that I would like to note is because of this V6 porting, it is definitely not recommended to shoot plated ammo through these. There's a couple of reasons why that is also the case. For one, although it's probably a very low likelihood that this would happen, the plating will come off or can come off as it goes over those ports in the barrel and can actually come up through the holes and, you know, creates sort of a little projectile hazard for you, which nobody really wants, as well as if that gets in there and gets stuck, it will clog the ports and potentially cause accuracy issues as other bullets that are traveling past it start hitting the debris that's in the ports if it's hanging out or hanging down at all. So that is my review of the Bul Armory Tac Comp. I was so incredibly excited to get to shoot this, and it did not disappoint. This is easily the best pistol that I have reviewed in 2026 or potentially ever. So that is my review of the Bul Armory Tac Comp new for 2026, and we'll see you on the range.